Da, 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 da. Hey, everybody. It's a late night trekking with Butch and Rob and Rob and Butch and Rob. That's right. It's a Cinema Color podcast. And we today are joined here, my buddy Rob and I, to talk about the just released today remastered 4K version of 1979 Star Trek The Motion Picture. Just came out today on Paramount Plus. God bless the world. Here we are. We've been waiting forever for it's the most beautiful of all the Star Trek films visually, and we've been waiting for it, and they gave it to us finally. There we are. So let's talk about it. Buddy Rob, say hey.
I offer my services as podcast co-host.
Granted, sir. Granted. Whatever. Yeah, so that's nice. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's... I'm excited about this, Butch, because while I've, seen a director's edition, the one from 20 years ago that came out, and while I've always enjoyed this movie, I was excited to see it with the sort of the definitive, it's called the director's edition, kind of so far, I guess, the definitive, a la the Blade Runner Final Cut kind of deal, of really an interesting sort of standalone Star Trek film. So yeah, we're talking about my favorite series in the history of anything is Star Trek. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's a movie that the Star Trek was a series that ran from 66 to 69, then goes off the air, and nobody thinks anything's going to happen, but then it goes into syndication and it becomes a giant hit. Far bigger than it ever was when it was on TV. They credit, kids coming home from school, college students watching it after, in the evenings and stuff like that. And it becomes a huge thing, big enough that they made 2 seasons of an animated series that had all the voice casts except Walter Koenig in it. But that's animated, which, they had the original cast, but it's still animated. People wanted to see it back on the screen enough that it convinced Paramount, the property that owned it, to turn it into a TV series, and then they were going to launch a new network, which they eventually did 20 years later or something like that. No, it's 26 years later. They were going to do that, but then they decided, hey, let's make it into a cinematic movie and throw shitloads of money at it. Became, for briefly, one of the most expensive movies ever made.
I believe at the time it was the most.
Yeah.
For a second.
Yeah, it was crazy expensive, and it came out in December 1979, not too long before or after. I think it was 1 or 2 weeks before or after another movie that we've done on our podcast, the Disney movie, The Black Hole. They came out within 2 weeks of each other.
And, 1979, if I'm not mistaken, also brought us Alien. So a pretty big year for science fiction.
Yeah.
We were in 4th grade, Butch. I didn't know you yet, of course. But
I did not.
I remember when this movie came out, I asked my dad if I could go see it, and he said, "You wouldn't like it. It's too boring."
Yeah, it's interesting. I was not really a Star Trek guy at that time. I've talked briefly on other podcasts, I think, about how when I was my earliest Trek memories are probably the animated series. I think I remember it was when I was rewatching. It was when I was finally watching the animated series in 2019, right after COVID started, and I'm working from home. I would have it on whilst I'm doing research or whatever in the background, and it was the music, and I was like, "Yeah, this is very familiar." It's like Kirk's standing there not doing anything, but his mouth is moving and stuff like that. And then, it's very interesting. So, so then this movie comes out, and it's not really a thing in my radar. I was so in the Star Wars world in that time, that I wasn't really the Trek guy yet.
Well, it's kind of interesting, Butch, because, Star Trek sort of made Star Wars possible, and then the success of Star Wars definitely made Star Trek: The Motion Picture possible. So, it really is interesting the relationship between those two monster franchises.
Yeah. So they when they decided to go movie, they went big. They threw a lot of money at it. They got all the cast, including the one holdout who wasn't going to be in that TV series, Leonard Nimoy. They convinced him, well, if it's a movie, maybe I will be in this. Maybe I imagine that's probably how it went. It's like, I'm not going to be in a TV show. Oh, it's a theatrical movie? Well, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so they do that, and they go out and get themselves Robert Wise, who at the time when this movie came out, I knew Robert Wise from Star Trek the Motion Picture. I had no idea what else he did. Turns out,
Yeah.
it's not his biggest movie of all time. I mean,
Not even close.
Yeah.
He's it says here, I'm looking at the screen.
Yeah.
Legendary director Robert Wise. That is true. But he has had an interesting career. We watched him do a friend of the podcast, The Andromeda Strain.
Yes.
He did The Haunting, which is a creepy horror movie.
Yep.
Didn't he do The Day the Earth Stood Still or something like that?
I don't know if he did The Day the Earth Stood Still. You're still not getting to the big elephant in the room in the Robert Wise canon, of course.
Well, he's in a couple of big musical monsters. I mean, this is a guy who's won Best Director a couple times. What were the musicals he did? I'm trying to think.
Well, The Sound of Music, he did that.
Yeah, and no one's ever heard of that, Butch. That's an
No one's
obscure little film.
They used to play that every year on TV on the same date. I don't remember what it was. So that's the one I remember. Is The Sound of Music. I'm trying to remember what the other ones that he did was. But it doesn't matter.
He has a bunch of classics, but they're all over the place genre-wise. It's not like he's one of those guys where you don't go, oh, that's a Robert Wise picture, right?
Yeah.
But he's quietly behind the scenes making all these real memorable films, anywhere from horror to musicals to sci-fi. Pretty nuts.
Yeah, so the making of motion picture, of course, is such that they spent 2 years developing a TV show. They cast a TV show. They weren't going to get Nimoy, so they cast a new guy instead to play a different Vulcan character named Zahn and all this stuff. They have Stephen Collins playing this guy, Will Decker. They have Lieutenant Ilea, who's a bald Dalton. We don't really know what's going on with them. We would learn later kind of what's going on with them because those characters became Will Riker and Deanna Troi, essentially, in the next generation. And all of this stuff, and they're getting ready to do this. They have costumes that feel more like the original series and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden this change order comes. And by the way, we're going to do it around Christmas time in 1979. And they had to rush to get it done, and the special effects were problematic, and the script was problematic, and all this stuff. And so they ended up putting it on screen before they'd even had a chance to show it to test audiences. Now, you got to figure if ever there was a movie that was guaranteed to make money, it was this one, because the idea of how many Star Trek fans there were out there who had grown up watching Star Trek on a 7-inch screen or a 13-inch black and white screen or something like that. And now we're going to be able to go see this show that we love on a big screen, And
I think that's why it's called Star Trek the Motion Picture, to really emphasize this is next level Star Trek, right? This is Star Trek movie, right? So
yeah.
I think they're really emphasizing that, and make money. This movie did, Butch.
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, it was not the profit margin wasn't what they had hoped for, because they had to really, really, really spend to get it on screen in time, right? I mean, the original effects houses that they had to do some of the effects just didn't work, and so they had to basically put it into overdrive and have new special effects houses they built. The original series was famous for having a pretty big model for the Enterprise that they used for filming, but this went way bigger.
Yeah.
So the whole story is built around, this is a newly refit Enterprise. It's the same ship. It's like the same hull, but a new ship built around the same hull or whatever. And so the looks similar but different. But more importantly, because they're doing this as a movie, they were able to overdo the kind of sets that they did nicely in the TV series, but now they're overdoing them, right? So they're much fancier. We get to see a lot of shots. I mean, you clearly get to see the entire bridge, the ceiling of the bridge, the little globe over the captain's chair on the bridge. shots from the globe over the captain's chair on the bridge. I mean, it's, they give the fans who, we would geek out over, oh, did you see this different view from like Kirk's chair looking at the screen? And so that's cool over.
What about the engine room?
Yeah, and the engine room is just amazing, right? They said, that engine room essentially is what we see in the Next Generation on the Enterprise D with that vertical shaft and stuff like that. It's very cool. We will continue to see that engine room in the next movie, I believe is what we will. It's at least briefly in the next movie.
Yeah. So Butch, when they did the show, they didn't have any encounter at Farpoint kind of. So we're starting
joining in progress. Yeah.
Right. It's already going, and we never got, because the show was canceled. We never got a wrap-up show either. Right, of them finishing their mission. It just was, they were in it, and then, it went away. And so this movie, 10 years later, is sort of, giving us some of that. It's not an origin story exactly, but it's sort of re-getting the crew all together.
It's a reunion show, yeah. It literally is, right? I mean,
but also, it really does feel like an episode also of the show, which I like. It's like a self-contained story in a vacuum, literally, of space. But, so it's kind of doing two interesting things. So, pretty cool. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is. And it's great that they do it. It's interesting because a lot of the crew is still on the crew, right? Kirk's not there. So in this, Kirk has been bumped up to Admiral. He's chief of Starfleet operations for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Spock has left the service and has gone back. He's going to give up on his human half. It's interesting because a couple of the other shows, Next Generation is the most famous one for having an android who really just wants to become he wishes he could be human. But Spock for the whole series has wished to not be human. He wants to be Vulcan, right? And so he's finally biting the bullet, and he's going to go to Vulcan. He's going to do the thing. I remember the original special effects. This is kind of where the movie opens. We see, we'll start with this part, and then we'll go back to where it really opens. So it starts with Spock on Vulcan, trying to purge himself of the last of his emotions. It's in what's called the Kolinar, or if you're McCoy, the Coliner, or the Caldoner edit, as it were. It doesn't matter. So
I think he calls it the K-dub at one
point.
Yeah, the
K-dub-dub. Yeah, KW-dub-dub. Yeah, exactly. And so he's there, and it's interesting because the original special effects showed a planet that had multiple moons and stuff like that. Everybody in the audience is going, Vulcan has no moon. But it's kind of cool because it's got sulfur pools and stuff like that. I mean, what we know about Vulcan is it's an arid planet and a red planet, basically, right?
What is Vulcan? Now I understand that reference.
And so it's a good place to start because the original special effects were hokey, very science fiction novel, generic science fiction novel artworky kind of backgrounds and stuff like that. But when Robert Wise did his director's cut, he had a lot more input on the special effects. Basically, they delivered special effects to them right before it went to screen, and so they didn't have a chance to, but that doesn't work for us. They just created generic backgrounds. But in this case, they have the cool, Vulcan statues made of the red volcanic glass and stuff like that, and the sulfur pools and stuff like that. And so there's Spock trying to purge himself, and he instead his mind comes in contact with some tremendous intelligence out in the universe, and so he puts a kibosh on that. He's like, "No, I'm going to go look for that instead."
That was a shame too, because it was at graduation. I mean, he was about to get.
That's right. They're literally handing you the diploma, or in this case, the fancy necklace, and he's like, "No, I say thee, nay, nay." So he goes. But of course, that's the second scene in the movie.
Is that a John Panette reference?
Thank you. I'm glad you know your John Panette, because John Panette is one of the greats. That's right.
Have you tried the bread? Yeah, that's what I remember.
You need that gluten. Okay, yeah, exactly. But the first thing we actually get is 3 Klingon warships in just an absolutely amazing shot. Those
This
models
is
are
how
really
you
cool
start
too.
a movie.
Yeah, and they're flying to some weird cloud, and we don't know what's going on there. There's weird music. It's the new Klingon music, and the new Klingons too, because Klingons, as we know, are just swarthy kind of Mongol mustache wearing, gold body paint colored, people and stuff like that, who got by on the great acting of some of the great guest stars in the original series.
Yes.
Michael Ansara and John Colicos and General Trelaine. I can never remember. William Campbell. That's right. So those guys plus a couple others. But in this case, it's one of the great guest stars in the history of the original series. Also, Mark Leonard playing a Klingon commander in this, and they all look. They look. If you've seen Star Trek in the 80s or later, you know what the Klingons look like. They're the bumpy-headed Klingons. But this is like the early version of the bumpy-headed Klingons. They're like the doofus looking. They all have confused looks on their faces. And
if I may, Butch, they look like British Klingons because they all have these fucked up teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. I thought they kind of look like 70s biker bar Klingons a little bit too, with their facial hair is like definitely like any which way but loose facial hair is what I'm kind of saying. So
yeah, we need the Black Widows to come out and.
So the Klingons are getting are there, and they're kind of investigating, and they're kind of a shoot first kind of gang, and this thing just shoots the blue torpedoes come out of the cloud and just erase them. I mean, like they hit them in a little lightning bolt and they just disappear. Vroom, 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 vroom. It's really amazing because we've seen Klingon warships in the original series, and this thing dusts them like they're nothing, swats them like flies.
And we're always told in the original series, or it's alluded to anyway, that the Klingons, if pound for pound, if you want an offensive weapon, it's the Klingon ships.
Yep.
They're made for that. They're built for that. They're the Mike Tysons, if you will, of maybe not the greatest maneuverability or defense, but by God, if you want to throw a punch.
Yeah.
And so 3 of them, and I think it looks really good. I like how you see inside the torpedo shaft, and it all lights up red, and out come these torpedoes. And, it's a great scene, but I just have always thought that music for this Klingon scene is the best.
Yes. Yeah, let's briefly talk about the music, because the music is great, and it's kind of Klingon music that we'll hear in some version of, kind of a stripped-down version of this same music in several of the next movies. But the music in this, and who does the music in this again? I'm trying to remember. Jerry Goldsmith is unbelievable, because this is actually not the first scene either, because the first scene is not a scene at all, but it's an overture. God bless them, the overture. If you're a Star Trek fan, if we were like high schoolers when this comes out, it doesn't matter if your parents or my parents aren't taking us to it. We're going to it, right? And we'd be invested, right? When this comes out,
well,
we'd be in the front row.
Yeah, I think I told you, Butch, the first time I ever saw Star Trek the Motion Picture was at that Midnight Film Festival they had in Idaho Falls in 8th grade.
Yes.
Where Star Trek the Motion Picture starts at midnight, and then it went all the way through the new Star Trek 3.
Star Trek 3, that's right. Yes, that's
right.
Before I arrive in Idaho Falls.
Yeah, so that... and we talked when we did the Black Hole and Mayhem, and that was sort of the weakest of the Mayhem movies. But this is those 2 films, the Black Hole and Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which are wildly different in quality.
Yes. They're both beautiful to look at in a lot of ways. Not always, but in a lot of ways they are.
They're two of the last Hollywood films to ever have this overture business, and it really does give you a feel of this is going to be an epic, because you do this for Lawrence of Arabia, you do this for Gone with the Wind, you don't do it for just every movie that comes along. And so when you have that, just the star field, and I mean, it's mesmerizing. I don't know how many times I've seen this movie, probably 20. I always enjoy it. We saw it in the I think I took Brett to it when it came out in the theater.
Yeah,
It was
it
pre-COVID.
was 2019. It was
Yeah,
that was the 40th anniversary. I took Brian to it. You took Brett to it. Yeah, in
it's awesome.
2019, and it was tremendous. And
Yeah, the
that
movie has the music's amazing, and the movie hasn't even started yet, and you're already it places you in this mood of, okay, this isn't just a movie I'm going to watch. I'm going to experience this. Whatever's going to happen is going to be an experience.
yeah, if you were to ask me to rank my favorite pieces of orchestral music in all of movies, the Ailea's theme that is in the overture for this is in the top 10. It's just whatever he's doing, he's capturing kind of the longing, the needing, the searching, it's a piece of music that really like grabs the heartstrings and says, you're needing something and wanting something, you just can't reach it. And I think that's it's a piece of music that speaks to what Star Trek fans had gone through. Whether they watched the series when it was out there before or whether they grew up watching it in reruns, they wanted this. As much as you wanted Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, I want this.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Butch. And it also fits the theme of the movie. Mm-hmm. And it is what J.J. Abrams never got about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not just zip and a fight over here. For as much as people used to say, I wish there was more action in Star Trek, this was the magic of it, the vastness of space, the wonder, the the what are we going to discover around the next star.
And it's the movie, I think, of all the Star Trek movies, it's the one that really captures that. Right. Yeah. I mean, some of them are great. Some of the other ones are great stories and stuff and have great emotional beats as well. But this one is that. It has its flaws, but it's that. And more than anything else, again, like I said, that's what I imagine if I was can I imagine a world in which I've been a Star Trek fan for, 10 years and I'm finally getting to sit in a theater and watch like the version that I always imagined. It's like convincing my high school self that someday you're going to be able to go and watch a $300 million Marvel superhero movie. You're like, no, that's never going to happen. I have to be content with the little stuff that I have. And I think that's what Star Trek fans thought too. And then it's all of a sudden, the most expensive movie ever made with all your favorite cast members is here on the big screen. It's as fancy schmancy looking as you can imagine, and all the bells and whistles, and you're like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe I'm sitting in a theater and watching this, right? When I went and saw it in 2019, I was sitting there. I had seen it so many times by then, and I had never seen it at the big screen like it was supposed to be seen, and it's an awe-inspiring experience.
Yeah, and that was the theatrical version. So,
yes.
So I know we were both excited about this director's edition. Yes. Like I said, I have it on regular DVD, but all my Blu-rays of it are the theatrical version. Right. So even when I saw it in the theater, it was the theatrical version. So, it's going to be cool to see how it, what is better and what isn't, if anything, on this.
And that's kind of what we're here to talk about tonight. We're not going to do our normal kind of walk through the whole plot and stuff like that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we liked about what we saw and what really struck us about this version, and again, we can talk a little bit about the original theatrical version which was rated G versus the PG rated director's cut version, which is interesting because they literally just change in some cases the tone of the music, and a couple times it's like there was always a couple awkward things in the original movie, like when Chekhov gets hurt and they just show him, he stands up and he's just standing in the middle of the screen holding his hand, and you're like, why is he doing that or whatever? They and why is the red alert thing so annoying, and why does Sulu say the new screen's held, and all this stuff? It's like, we get it, they do so much to just like pave over some of the rough spots just with retractions and stuff like that. But this version is not only that, it's the director's cut, but then this version of the director's cut, there's a lot that's like rich in sound and visuals and stuff, and so that's what I thought was really interesting.
Well, let's talk about the visuals a little, Butch, because the thing that leaps off the screen at you whenever you watch Star Trek: The Motion Picture, after watching mini skirts and
yes,
red shirts and blue shirts and gold shirts in the original show, was these 70s drab unis they were wearing in the motion picture, which always threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
because they're really muted. They're that just shitty 70s. I don't know. It was a trend at the time.
kind of like very cottony. That I think of that white shirt that Kirk's wearing with the open collar and then the embroidered on or the embossed on kind of like insignia.
Well,
I will. Yeah. So is that what you're talking about? Kind of.
Yeah, and just all the browns and so that scene you're talking about where Kirk's wearing the he looks like he's gonna go golfing with that fucking white shirt on, but behind him is Spock and Decker wearing pajamas.
Yeah,
basically
onesies. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, and so that always threw me. I thought that in this edition, it was not the boring color palette. It's the same. I don't know. It is a different color palette than the original series, but it's not like tacky or just annoying like it was in the versions I've seen before. I thought it looked fine. It doesn't.
Yeah, and whatever they did to the filming, the colors that are there really pop in this version.
Yeah,
right?
There's almost no color in the theatrical version. It's bland.
And a lot of that is because of lighting and stuff like that, that things are a little darker. In this case, they brighten a lot of things up. And when they do, a lot of the colors that were probably there all along just pop better.
Yeah.
So it is more interesting looking. I always thought that the uniforms that they wear, they thought them out a little bit more than in the original series. They're more utilitarian and useful and stuff like that. And you're going down to an alien planet. You don't want to be wearing that mini skirt. I mean, the viewer wants you to be wearing that mini skirt, but there's no logic to doing that in the real world, right?
Well, I'll say this though, Butch. I also don't need to see the exact size and shape of every male crew member's penis when I'm watching the show. Some of these outfits these guys are wearing, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, that's fair. And, it will be, it's interesting because this movie comes out in 79 and 87. The Next Generation premieres, and there's dudes wearing skirts in that and stuff. So,
ahead of its time.
Yeah, so, you could kind of tell that they were trying to be more futuristic and stuff like that. I mean, the thing about the original series is, for better or worse, it really feels like the 60s. The mini skirts are just very 60s, and it was a great thing to be alive and be a teenage boy when that series was on. I'm not going to lie, but...
Well, and I think you see in the introductory scene where... they're in San Francisco at Starfleet, and we're going to meet Kirk and all this. And you see, there's some women walking by in skirts and stuff, and it's that same, a lot of tans, a lot of whites.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the colors of the clothes.
Yes.
But, I think, I don't know about this. I feel like that's Roddenberry. I don't know if that's, I have nothing to base that on. I just feel like Roddenberry always seemed to have this idea, and he wrote the novel for the motion picture, but and in fact we've seen this plot before when we saw the Changeling in the old show, but I think Roddenberry always had this kind of utopian vision of Star Trek, and a lot of sexuality, a lot of free spirited, maybe gender bending or gender whatever neutral stuff. So I think that all fits this big screen adaptation. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously they're trying to imagine. I think they go from being kind of a stylized what's going to look good on TV in their first color, one of their first color TV shows and stuff like that, to what is more realistic in terms of what would people really be wearing in the 23rd century and stuff like that. We're still, so I think that's part of it, and they're kind of imagining, a world where, if you're not really into color, why are you wearing the big colorful shirts, right? It'd all be drabs and stuff like that. But I'm glad you mentioned that scene, the San Francisco scene, because that's the first real challenge to like a high definition special effects, is what does a spaceship flying over the Golden Gate Bridge look like. I mean, that was always a challenge for like Independence Day and stuff. When the Independence Day was instead of having fighters, X-wings shooting it out in space with TIE fighters, they're having F-18s in the atmosphere. That's a lot tougher to pull off special effects wise. And whatever the original series or the original version of this movie looks like, this version, when they're showing Kirk's shuttle approaching San Francisco, is awesome. I mean, the ultra wide screen, it's beautiful shots, and everything is just incredibly sharp. You can literally almost kind of see the striation lines on the cables on the Golden Gate Bridge. It's amazing.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna say there will be points in this movie where I'm gonna be critical of the visuals. Not this scene though. Mm-hmm. And they were able to do. You remember in the '90s when they re-released the original Star Wars trilogy and they added 5 minutes here.
97, yeah. Yep.
And a lot of it was adding some extra crap to the scenes.
Digitally, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think there's some of that in this scene, right? It's because you're just able to do stuff you just couldn't do back then with matte paintings and some of the stuff. And it looks good. It doesn't look cluttered. It doesn't look like too much. I think it looks just right.
Yeah,
it looks like a busy port or whatever at Starfleet headquarters.
Yeah, exactly. It's tremendous, and that's where Kirk is like explaining in very short order that yes, I'm an admiral, but yeah, I'm taking command of the Enterprise to deal with whatever this is that's coming. There's a lot of going to pull rank with admirals who are above me, kind of a thing, and get my way, and use the Corbomite maneuver on Admiral Nagur or whatever. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. But it's interesting how they're setting it up. I think is great. And then in terms of the visual effects, there is one shot in this that I think is kind of weak. When they show everything from a distance, there's a lot of matte painting stuff in there and some animation in the matte painting stuff. But then at some point, Kirk and Sonak are coming up the escalator, and you can see kind of like the shuttle behind him, and it seems very two-dimensional. That shuttle is behind them when you see it briefly when they do a close-up coming up the stairs. You can see the thing that's in the background that when a wide shot looks like it's three-dimensional, in a close-up shot of the two of them in the background, this thing, it looks two-dimensional. But that's okay. That's okay, because this is going to give us, because of its budget and stuff, this is going to give us some things that we've really never seen, but we've really wanted to see, but we'll get there. Because the next thing is, of course, Kirk goes out into space to the space dock, and he's going to get a ride over, because if you want to talk about special effects and some of the criticisms of this movie, you're about to get your first glimpse of that. How much money they spent and how long they're going to have the camera languish over the money that they spent on those special effects.
Yeah, I do like how they do it too. They sort of casually mention like something's the matter with the Enterprise's transporter, which is why it gives an excuse for this epic scene that everybody remembers from the first one. It's also going to be a big plot point in a minute.
Yeah,
but it gives you an excuse for Kirk having to shuttle from the whatever orbiting I don't, is it a starbase or is it just orbiting?
I assume it's something like that.
Yeah. To the 5 minutes out of town is the Enterprise by itself in this giant space garage, basically, and so we get the very famous, and it gives Goldsmith a chance to really build and swell the emotion.
Yeah.
I thought the lighting was really interesting for. This is because now you're tinkering with the scene that is famous in movie history. Everybody remembers the introduction to the Enterprise ship, which is really a big member of the crew in the original show. The ship itself is like a character.
For sure.
And when, everybody remembers the introduction in this film it really gives you the scale, the scope of this ship, but also it's ready for its maiden voyage. They've got it all shined up and spit polished, and it seemed like in this version it's extra well lit. There's light streaming in from outside the canopy garage thing.
Yeah, they have the kind of big light structures that they kind of they're like, why is it so well lit? But they show why it's so well lit, and there's little things hovering around. There's guys in the little spacesuits floating around. It's a really busy place, lots going on, and it's terrific. And you know what else is really? Go ahead, you go first, and then I'll tell you what I'm.
No, I was just going to say. Also, they nailed the continuity. I was looking to see if they're going to screw up some continuity, but they'll show a shot of Scotty and Kirk, and maybe Scotty's got his hand on his shoulder. Yeah. And then they do a different shot, and it's still got his hand on his shoulder. They didn't. There's no flubs.
Yeah.
So I thought that was well done too.
Yeah. What were you gonna say? And I was going to say something about that, because one of the things that was a little bit of a challenge in the original version of it, which is when they're showing them a lot of the interior shots from that shuttle pod, but then they show some of them from outside, and it's pretty clear that what they're doing is they're putting a projection of Kirk and Scotty on the interior of the windshield of that thing, right? And so it always looked like a projection, but they have fixed that so that no matter what angle they're coming at and what distance they're at, you can see them. They look like they're Kirk and Scotty sized people, and they look like they're not being projected on the window, but that they're inside that thing. And that's an effect that really benefited from whatever changes that they've made over the years and stuff like that, was that one. So it looks like they're in this little pod floating around, circling all the way around the Enterprise to come and dock to it on its port side or whatever. So, and
I think mission accomplished for major test number one. Is that scene gonna benefit from the upgrade or spit and polish? And I would say yes. It looks great. It sounds great. Yep. It looks great. Yep. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's tremendous. So now Kirk's on board, and they've got to assemble the crew on the flight deck. We get a couple other scenes, but the scene I want to talk about is when they're assembling the crew that's going to have to see what they're up against on the flight deck.
Yeah, let me just give a quick thought before that, Butch.
Sure.
So Kirk comes on board. Oh, hey, it's Captain Kirk, or Admiral Kirk. There seems to be some confusion about his rank, because they're like, oh, hey, Captain,
Yeah.
But he's going to, so everybody knows this. Kirk has, with his 3-minute meeting with Nagura, who we get the impression Nagura is very formidable, so Scotty's impressed that Kirk pulled this off. But Kirk has somehow weaseled his way into taking command of the Enterprise. That's, of course, we all knew that. And he's got to break it to the captain, until 10 minutes ago, Captain Decker, who does not know the good news. He has not welcomed the Lord Jesus Christ into his heart yet.
That's right.
He hasn't heard the good news. So this scene, I thought, I got to tell you, watching this movie tonight, with being able to notice every little thing.
Yeah.
I think this is a great performance by Shatner. I really do.
Yeah.
He conveys several things during this, because there's a couple little scenes before they assemble the crew. So first of all, he calls Decker aside, and Decker's like, I'm kind of busy.
Yep.
Can we get to the point? And Kirk's like, the point is you're promoted. And I'm taking over, and and whatever, and Decker is suitably shocked and slightly offended and somewhat pissed.
Yes, all of the above. Yes,
all the above, and you feel the tension between the two of them, right? Because you get Decker sort of says, you kind of championed me for this. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But you championed me to get this job, and now you're snatching it away. And then there's a couple little scenes where, Kirk's a little confused, going the wrong direction, doesn't know what's what. And I really think it helps you see, through the direction and through Shatner's performance, that he's super excited for this opportunity that's present itself. Never let a good crisis go to waste to get his captaincy back. But at the same time, he's got some doubt. He's got some mixed feelings, like when there's the transporter accident, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Oh yeah.
I really thought they did a good job of showing the conflicted emotions that Kirk has, and they do this throughout the film, because it's a terrible situation they're about to go into, and yet he's also jacked about the chance to be back in where he belongs.
Yes.
If you're a Kirk fan.
He realizes he's made a terrible mistake accepting promotion, yes.
I think this is a real. I just really liked all this stuff at the start here between Decker and Kirk. I thought it was great, and I thought they did a good job throughout the film of kind of keeping that tension and then gradually lessening it to where it becomes more of a trust, less antagonistic, less competitive thing, and more of a all right, we're all on board kind of thing. But I thought it was really cool. Which I believe brings us to the big scene you're talking about. Yeah,
well, I'll just check real quick. I think Stephen Collins, who plays Decker, just is really, really good in this movie. He is.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a thankless task of being the outsider in this, who's competing with Kirk, and of course, who's rooting for the guy competing with Kirk? Nobody's rooting for the guy competing with Kirk,
right.
Even though Decker is usually right in these. When they're butting up against each other, we could talk about as it gets further in. I think the crucial moments. It's that Kirk being in command is what saves them. I think. But
and I like how they address that when Kirk comes on board and leaves, and some of the crew we don't recognize is like, well, what about Captain Decker? That's kind of a dick move.
Yes.
And the ones we know from the show are like
they're like
great move. I'm Team Kirk. Yeah. You're Team Decker. Yeah. It's kind of like
they don't play with it too much, but they play with it a little bit, and the little bit really kind of shows. It's like you're right, Team Decker versus Team Kirk, old school versus new school, and we'll see how that plays out. It's interesting. So now the scene, of course, is the scene I was talking about, which is the briefing. They assemble on the recreation deck.
I wish they would have done that in the old show,
dude.
More.
But the reason they didn't is because they have it's a crew of 400 something people, and it looks like, I don't know if it actually is, but it believably looks like there could be 400 people in that room.
I bet there's a couple hundred. You know what I like about it, Butch? I've always thought I would see. I've always wished, and maybe there is. I've always wished there was like an Andorian in there. There are some aliens.
There are
it's
some.
It's not Star Wars Cantina time.
No, and it shouldn't be. I mean, because that wouldn't be consistent with the original series. But
there's, it's a good reminder. I always make jokes about how woke our society is or whatever. Star Trek was always on the cutting edge of diversity and all that stuff. There's a full blown Native American guy.
All races and genders are present, and that's good, right? Because why wouldn't there be? I mean, obviously, in '66 on a military vessel, you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But by '79, you're like, Trek had been in the zeitgeist for 10 years, and so I think you were starting to see a general acceptance by the public of this is going to be what it's like someday, right?
Yeah, it is. It's cool, the 60s to have a Russian, a black woman, all that stuff was an alien, someone who's not even human. I mean, that was all bananas.
Yeah.
An Asian. So it is cool, and they continued that here, but it's not like obnoxious. It fits the story. It fits the century we're in. It's great.
Yeah.
And it shows the magnitude by having them all assemble in a giant thing and see this horrific scene on the view screen of the Epsilon station. Yep. It really shows the magnitude of, we've gone up against giant green hands before. We've gone up against killer rocks before. We've gone up against gangsters.
I hear we're going to go up against an 11,000 mile long amoeba at some point. We haven't done that yet on our Trek podcast, but we're going to soon.
Yeah, but what we haven't gone up against is this formidable opponent, which we already saw just slap aside 3 Klingon warships.
Except,
so
it is worth pointing out that, yes, we've gone up against this before because the Changeling was an episode where we did this, but they don't know that yet. So it's great. And I will say one thing about it. There is one thing that's jarring about the scene. It is 1979, which means they are constitutionally and statutorily required to have rust-colored carpets in this place. I mean, it's very 1970s, late 1970s decor in there, right? It's all square blocks and stuff. It does look like the rec room in a Holiday Inn from that era. A little bit. The
or
color
maybe a
scheme.
Mormon church.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that is exactly. If you've never played basketball in a gym that had a brown colored carpet on for floor, you've never been in a Mormon church because they all have that. Yeah, absolutely.
And this was the scene, Butch, where I noticed the first thing, I think. But I was like, I sort of remember him saying "viewer off," and then Uhura standing there just being awestruck by what they've just watched, and then him saying "viewer off."
I don't remember if that's the case. It might be. I mean, obviously, yeah, she does look a little stunned and it needs to be urged to action. I think that's true.
But here, but in this version, it's like "viewer off," and she's like, "You got it, no problem."
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
And so I actually prefer, if I'm right, this could be one of those cases where what's that called? The Mandela
effect. Yeah.
But if it's real, I preferred the original, viewer off, and then her being so stunned he has to find her once more. But
hey, by the way, when they show one of those wide shots of the crowd of crew, I swear that one of the guys in the front is Tony Shalhoub. You know who Tony Shalhoub is?
I do not.
Yeah, he was like the detective Monk in the TV show Monk or whatever. He's been in a lot of other things.
There was someone who I thought I looked familiar. Not him, I don't think. But there's someone in one of the scenes where I was like, yeah, that guy feels like he's been in something. I'm sure it's true. I mean, who wouldn't have given their left testicle to be in Star Trek: The Motion Picture as an extra?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that scene with all those crew in there are some of the famous Star Trek super fans who were like responsible for keeping Star Trek alive over the years, like Bijo Trimble.
Oh yeah,
and stuff. Who did like the letter writing campaigns? She's in that scene. Right.
How'd you like to have a name like Bijo?
Well, nobody forgets that name, right? It's like, there's like, I'm sure like Joe Smith was involved in the letter writing campaign, but nobody remembers Joe Smith, but they all remember Bijo Trimble. There was also another one of the original, like really kind of like super fans was a guy named George LaForge. And that got enough of a notice that they named a character in Next Generation after him, and Geordie LaForge too. So, yeah.
And that guy spent the rest of his life with a grin on his face.
Damn right he did. Yeah. So now we've seen what we're up against, and now they've got to get underway. We still have to get the rest of the crew on board because poor Commander Sonak is involved in a transporter accident. And it's a pretty gruesome scene. Nothing has really changed in this than from the original version, but it's gruesome, and it's also it's a little bit ham-fisted too. The way they matter-of-factly explain what happened back on Earth and stuff like that. But what do you want to say about this scene?
Well, this is this is one of the more exciting scenes of the film, I think. Yeah. Even though it's just a little scene, it does a lot for the plot. This is one where I was like, okay, there's an opportunity here for them maybe to tinker with it. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right call. Doesn't look like they did.
No. Yeah, it's something vague inside the beam and stuff that's yelling and twisting and
yeah, and it is effective, and it was effective then, and it's effective 40 years later. It's pretty horrifying. This is the scene that you and I have always joked about, like by itself, that kept it from getting a G rating because it's pretty horrifying to think of.
Yeah.
I've always thought this was an interesting scene, Butch. This has nothing to do with this edition of it.
All right.
I like how, they're in the engine room. Kirk's just given Decker the bad news. Now beat it, get to work as your new job.
Yep.
The assistant to the manager. And then, there's a little explosion at the engineering console near where Scotty's standing, and they go, oh, shit, it's the transporter. And the guy says, transporter room, do not be. And it's like, it's too late. And so Kirk and Scotty book it to the transporter room.
Yep.
And it's already in process. And Rand, who it's good to see her, out of rehab and back on the crew. She's there, and Kirk moves her aside. So Kirk and Scotty are trying to fix this transporter disaster that's unfolding before our eyes, and it's gruesome. And I've always liked this, how it's pretty horrifying, and Rand turns away, as I think anybody who's not working the controls would. I know I would.
Yeah.
And she's shaken by it, and Kirk gives her this kind of perfunctory, it wasn't your fault, and I'm out.
Yeah.
Kind of, which is, I've always liked, because I think it is sort of showing where Kirk's head is a little bit here. I know he cares about Rand, but it's like lip service to consoling her.
Yeah.
And he's really, how many times in the original series did he lose somebody and just was really shaken by it? And, every time.
Well, I think he's shaken by it here too, and that's probably why he's kind of dismissive of Rand.
It is. That's what I'm saying. And so it's in character for him to be really shaken by it, and I think this is where, along with taking a wrong turn in Corridor 6 or whatever, this is where I think he's starting to have some doubt, because this is definitely not a good omen for the mission, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're good. I mean, it's going to come into play in just a second here. The two things I have about the scene that I think are still problematic is when he calls down and says, "Did you get him back, Starfleet?" And they're like, it's kind of just for effect. What we got back didn't live long. Fortunately, it was fused with the Brundlefly and with the teleport pod door, and somebody had to put a shotgun up to its head and shoot it. Yeah.
Here's what I think about that, Butch, just for a sec. Yeah, it's literally 8 seconds since the incident occurred. I think the person at the other end of the phone is appropriately shocked, and so I think that's why. And I do like that it leaves your imagination like, oh shit, that couldn't have been good. And in all likelihood, they probably ought to be running over there to see if whatever it is dead. It just happened.
Maybe check for a pulse before again. So it's okay. So the second thing that I have a problem with on this is that it's like less than like 5 minutes later when they're calling down to the bridge and saying, "Hey, by the way, there's somebody down there who doesn't want to get in the transporter." I was like, I wonder why they don't want to get in the transporter. Somebody just died like 15 seconds ago in the transporter, and now somebody doesn't want to get in there. And Kirk's like, "Oh, I'll tell him to get on the transporter." Yeah, he's got. If ever Leonard McCoy had a reason not to want to get on the transporter, now's that time.
I'm on Team Bones. I'd rather take a ladder than take the transporter after what just happened.
I'll take my chances with that space jump from Into Darkness is what I'll do. Yeah, just open the hatch when I get there.
Yeah, but it's a great scene. I mean, I can't imagine this movie without that scene, and it does create a little bit of a problem, because there's token Vulcan guy. Yeah. He's gone. What are we gonna do? Shit.
Yeah, you're gonna have to double as science officer, Commander Decker. That's right. And then somewhere in the middle of their navigator arrives too. That's Lieutenant Ilea. She's played by Persis Kambata, who's shaved head. And we do not get a lot of details about what Deltans are like, but there's some oath of celibacy that's there. Everybody's like enamored with her. She seems to have empathic powers, because later on she's going to make Chekhov like not feel pain when he gets his arm burned and stuff like that, but they don't explain why. We just do, and it's interesting that they do that. They had this whole backstory planned for this character, and then of course, she was going to be on the TV show, but because this is a one-off, we're never going to learn that backstory other than she and Decker had a thing, right? And
they were banging away.
I'll tell you what, the thing about Persis Kambata in this movie is that you're asking a lot of an actress who's beautiful to, like, by the way, shave your head and then show all the emotion you can with your eyes. It's amazing what she does in this movie with just her eyes. It's unbelievable what she does in this movie with her eyes.
Yeah, and by the way, you're not an experienced actor, so there you go.
Yeah, it's just astounding what they got out of her in this movie. And, it's interesting because at this time in American history, 1979, she's an Indian actress from India, not Native American, but from India. and as a result, she has an exotic accent that I think most Americans were not familiar with that accent very much at the time.
Yeah. If I may, Butch,
Yeah.
you remember in Journey to Babel?
Yes.
Or Babel? Babel?
Babel.
Babel, yeah. I always go with however Sarek.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Yeah. Thank you. And you remember there was the Andorian, sort of the head Andorian, and
Yes.
he was the creepy assassin from The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers that,
I do.
And he had this great weird accent.
Sarek of Vulcan. Oh no, you're talking about the proud and warrior race guy.
Yeah, I said the Andorian.
Yeah, you said Andorian. I went right to Tellarite. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the Andorian, he's got that weird exotic accent, and hers is kind of like that. It makes it sound like English from another planet. It's really cool.
Yeah. If you need me, by the way, I'm over here shoving fruit cubes in my glass. So yeah, never mind.
Was that epic when we were at Jay's?
It's right. So it is. She, and she does not. I mean, they show a lot of very close up shots of her in this movie. She does not have the subcontinent skin tone. She has the skin tone of somebody from Omaha, Nebraska, or whatever. English breeding stock and stuff like that. So it's interesting but yeah, she definitely has the British Indian accent and stuff like that, and that comes across as alien accent on this movie. I mean, stuff. And
he's very alluring.
Yes, and again, having to be alluring with no hair. Which I know when I was younger was off-putting and stuff like that.
We see it all the time in Oscars week, but we don't see it. When have you ever seen that any other time?
Yeah.
I think half of the ticket sales were probably. I know it caused a stir. I remember when Star Trek came out and I was in fourth grade, and it's got a bald chick in it.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Yes, exactly, and of course, not a big deal in a good way. It's a big deal in a, because
in a novelty way.
In a novelty way, but when you're that age, you're kind of there's novelty, but you're really kind of looking for with the expected and stuff like that, I think. But it grows on you as you get older and stuff, and you realize kind of that it's designed to demonstrate a much different culture than ours and stuff like that. And this whole, you don't know what's going on. All you know is she has an oath of celibacy on file, and it's like, okay, do they have hair and then they shave their hair off so that they're not as alluring, or I don't know. Yeah, you can make up all this. It doesn't matter. I will say that Picard season 2 has Deltons in it briefly.
Oof.
So that's something interesting. At some point they visit. It's at a nightclub, is what it is. But yeah, they do have some Deltons on there, which was interesting. And it wasn't until they say it, and you're like, "Holy crap, they're Deltons!" That's what they're. It's interesting. So I'll just.
You're like the king of the Picard spoilers. I swear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to say there's Deltons on there, it's in one scene, and they're not characters that stick around. They're just there for one scene. So
okay.
It's very much a throwaway reference, is what it is. So now the whole crew's on board. McCoy comes on board. He doesn't really want to come on board. He seemed to be happy in retirement. He's got the gold chain, the chest hair, the arms of a guy who gets no regular exercise and stuff like that.
I know those arms well, my friend.
Yeah. And he's like, he's gruff. He's angry about it. He thinks he's been drafted, and it turns out Kirk pulled strings to get him on the board, and he's pissed at Kirk briefly. And there's a moment, I always used to watch that scene and think, oh, they're just playing with each other. But I think the way to read that scene is that McCoy is pissed that Kirk has dragged him back into this place he doesn't want to be. And eventually Kirk implores him enough. I have something to do. The fate of the world may depend on it, and I can't do it without you. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And it's that understanding of it, that they're not joshing with each other, but he's genuinely angry.
Yeah.
That really kind of makes that scene work.
Yeah, it's interesting. So ostensibly only 2.5 years have passed since the mission ended.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. Yeah, but again, we left the show before the mission ended also. So more than 2.5 years since the show last aired, but 2.5 years since the mission. Right, yes, exactly.
Right. So, and we didn't see how the show ended, but apparently, this is my take on it. Apparently, there must have been some messiness because Kirk got booted upstairs. McCoy left the service. Spock not only left the service, he tried to purge his human emotions.
He's
right?
leaving the world behind. That's right.
It feels like there might have been some hurt feelings or some tension or something that caused the big three that the show really revolved around in the 60s was the Kirk, Spock, McCoy Trinity. Something happened because none of those three have been happy since that ended.
Yep. And as the movies go on, we will see them spending all their time, even when they're off duty, all their time together. But they were clearly ready to go. Have a nice life. I'm out. Right. It's
doesn't it make you wonder how the original 5-year mission ended?
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating to wonder that. Exactly. So now they got to get off on stuff. And the thing is, this is a newly refit Enterprise. They're kind of throwing it together as it is. That's the reason the transporters were having problems. Their engine's imbalanced. But Kirk is like, we got to go. We got to go. And that's going to cause problems. And Decker is continuing to tell him, look, you don't know the ship and stuff like that. And McCoy's like, yeah, you probably should let your people do what they know how to do and stuff like that. Kirk's like, am I the only one here that knows that shit's about to go down and we got to get out there, right?
Well, you're talking about one of the big. We're about to get to one of the big set pieces of the whole movie, right?
This one.
Well, so yeah. So first off, if I may, Butch, are we ready for this?
Yeah,
scene?
We're ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So they kind of zip away and unnecessarily look out the rearview mirror at the Earth receding, and then we see him, zipping past Jupiter,
and a bunch of moons that look like Earths, which they shouldn't, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. And Kirk says, we get a captain's log, which I loved. I was, a little surprised there's none of the space Final Frontier stuff in the, opening credits. They chose not to go that way. Okay. I was glad that they went with the captain's log business. So I was glad.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're going to risk, he goes all Gene Simmons, well, we're going to risk going to warp speed in the solar system, and so they're going to nudge it into warp. Scotty's like, I don't think this is a good idea. Decker's like, I'm sure this is not a good idea. Kirk's like, do it.
Yeah.
And so we get the famous wormhole scene. And I don't know. I didn't think this scene was as good with how they did it. What did you think of this?
I don't think they changed much. They do change a couple things. They changed some of the camera shots and stuff like that. It's really weird. The idea is that as they're in this the wormhole is created because of an engine imbalance, which they don't really explain. It doesn't matter. What it is that they're stuck in a tunnel that they can't get out of. There's an asteroid stuck in there with it. If they keep going, they're going to hit the asteroid, presumably get smashed.
If I may, Butch, it's a tunnel of like time and space distortion.
Yeah. So it's in this case they use laser lights or whatever. It's like a laser light show, which was all the rage in 1979, by the way.
And it's cool looking. I've always thought it looked cool.
Yeah, so they're in there, and the time and space thing means that everything's slowing down. They're using this visual distortion to show stuff like that. The ship's rocking back and forth, and so when they say 10 seconds, they really mean like 20 seconds because it's like 10 seconds.
Believe that laser order.
It does kind of make a scene that's already a little bit hammy, drag a little bit because of the slowdown and stuff like that. But they do make some trims in the director's cut that make it better. So at some point when the thing eventually does resolve and it goes boom, they blow up the asteroid that's in front of them with a photon torpedo and the tunnel goes away. In the original version, which we saw in the theater in 2019, Chekhov goes, "We're out of it." They just have him go, and just cutting that we're out of it. It's like, yeah, we know, right? It's like stop hand feeding the viewers, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, okay. So it feels like it does feel trimmed.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why at warp 1, when an explosion happens 100 yards ahead of you, it stays in front of you for 10 more seconds. I feel like they should have flown right through that explosion, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. Yes. Wormhole
You know,
effect, Rob.
Thank you. Yeah, it could be like, why when I toss a tennis ball up in the air and I'm on an airplane, does it land in my lap and not, 2 miles behind me?
Also, why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near?
Exactly. I knew you were doing that one. Yeah. So that is a little. I was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to see them like emerge, with that, go through the whatever.
Yeah.
But it did feel like, because I've always enjoyed that scene. I like the slowdown. I like the photon torpedoes. Away! I like it.
Yes.
But it felt like, a radio edit of a song you like. It sounds like you like the edit,
Yeah, I do like the edit.
They just took the fade out off of. I love it loud. What are you kidding me? You trimmed off the 5 seconds of the fade out.
So sometimes they would. I mean, they didn't trim the good stuff out of the scene, is what I'm saying. I think that the stuff I recognized that they trimmed out was good that they trimmed it out.
I'm glad that line by Chekhov got trimmed out, but I don't know. It looked. I don't know. It didn't jive with me today.
Well, that's fine. So they get out of the wormhole. And we're out of it, and then we got to go have the confrontation in Kirk's quarters because Decker countermanded an order. Kirk wants an answer why, and when he gets the answer, he's like, "Damn, you're right, dude."
So
yeah,
this is my. I'm just gonna jump in here, Butch. This is my beef of the whole movie. I don't know what the hell was going on in this scene. So you had warned me about this. You had said, "Well, I don't know that you meant it as a warning." You had.
Well, I don't think we're at the scene you think we're at yet. This is the scene between Decker and McCoy and Kirk in Kirk's quarters.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, we're getting to that scene, but we're not there yet. So, so in this case, what's happening is Kirk's getting Decker explained about why they changed the order.
Explain.
And he's like, "Look, you don't know the ship like I do. You being in charge just means we're taking risks, right?" And he's like, "Well, I trust you'll nerdsmade me, mister." And he's like, "Yes, I will do that." And that's good. But the thing is, so everything we're setting up here is like, man, it's really a bad thing that Kirk's in charge. Everything they're setting up is like Decker should be in charge, which, by the way, Decker could be in charge of the ship doing its day-to-day thing and just have Kirk be in charge of the big decisions that are going to come later, because it's Kirk's decision-making later that's going to save the world, right?
Well, let me offer a counterpoint, Butch.
Yeah.
A ship can't have two captains. Spock said that before, I think, at some point. So, right, so...
Heather can have two mommies, but the Enterprise can't have two captains.
That's a great point. I think they're showing not that Kirk shouldn't be in charge, but that it's not all rainbows and buttercups. Yeah. Right. There is some drama in, we're used to the 3-year/5-year mission of Kirk can do no wrong, basically.
Yep.
Every call he makes goes his way. Yep. When he rolls the dice, it comes up whatever he wants. I mean, this is the guy you'd want to go hit the slot machines with or whatever.
Nothing ever goes wrong when he makes decisions. That's right.
And this isn't going that way, so that gives some drama because it's not a slam dunk that he's going to make the right call. But what I really like about this stuff is it really shows to me. And I thought they, for all the criticism this movie has gotten for missing the point of Star Trek, the essence of Star Trek.
Yep, doesn't.
Which I think some of it is probably justified, but boy, they sure nailed McCoy's relationship with Kirk, which is he's a straight shooter with Kirk. Yep. He will tell Kirk the truth.
Yep. Whether it's going to hurt him or not, he knows it's in his best interest to have McCoy in his corner, telling him that. Yeah.
I mean, he tells Kirk that Decker might have a point. Kirk that thought had never crossed his mind.
Yep. It's possible.
And it's awesome. Yeah. I think it really is cool. It's cool how Kirk kind of smooths it out by saying, "I trust you'll nursemaid me through these difficulties." Yep. And Decker kind of grudgingly respects Kirk. So it's come down a hair from, Decker said his piece. he explained it to Kirk.
Explained. That's better even.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kirk received it and, kind of gave him a wink.
Yes.
And McCoy told him the truth. And so I think this is good stuff. This really is good stuff.
I agree. No explanation necessary. Okay. Yeah. So now we're going to get, by the way, Decker is settling into his role as science officer and first officer. And so let's bring in Mr. Spock via a shuttle. Which is interesting. I think it's a courier of some kind, and that shuttle is going to dock like 15 feet behind the bridge. I mean, they're not fucking around. I don't know who he is, but he's going to come right on the bridge. Good for him.
He had handicap parking or something.
That's exactly right. And so he comes on, and he's there because the V'ger, or we don't know, this entity in the cloud is what he thinks spoke to him from all the way on planet Vulcan. So, which is 6 days away. We will learn. Later, because I think late in the movie, Scotty says we can have you back in 6 days, and while they're at Earth.
4 days.
4 days.
And I think I think V'ger was 3 days away. Yeah. Is my recollection.
Yeah. So this is a situation where Spock comes on board and he's like, "Look, I heard about your problems with the engines. I was monitoring those on my way here. I can help." He's not like, "Would you take me aboard?" I'm just here. You're going to take me on. You need me. That kind of thing, and everybody's happy to see him, and he is the coldest fish you've ever seen, and it was off-putting to a lot of people, but that's because they weren't seeing it for what's going on here, and part of it is because Wise and the writers are not handing this stuff to you, right? He was trying to wash his hands of all of this, and he was that close to doing it, and now he's like, "Fuck, I got to go back with these assholes again."
Right, and you and I get that, and I think some idiot just walking in the theater probably might not get that. It's cool too because we know that like Ensign is like Spock Jr. It's his protege. Yeah. He's like so happy. He lights up when he sees a Spock, and then gets just like cut off in mid sentence.
Ghosted, yeah.
Yeah. And talk
with the hand.
Yes. Well, it's not rude, but it's just like
dismissive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it hurts a little for Chekhov because it's not reciprocated.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the same with someone will say something to Spock and he doesn't even seem to hear it. He just will continue on with whatever he was going to say anyway to whoever.
Yeah. For sure.
Yep. And it is cool, and it is, it does make you do, like a little bit of a double take there. I think you and I are both cool with it. I think it's a good choice.
Yep.
Because Spock is going to make, so this is sort of, it really, even though we don't know what happened between the original show and now for Spock, other than that, something happened that caused him to want to purge his human everything. This is going to show his little arc of getting back to the Spock we all know and love, who's going to be...
Yeah, not even that, but like a new and improved Spock almost. Yeah, I mean, the Spock that comes out of this is like, it's like the better Spock than we've ever had before.
So this takes us to, I believe, if you're ready...
Well, they fix the engines... They hit warp 1. Now they're traveling at warp 7 to get to V'ger. Now we're ready to have the scene you want to talk about. Right. Go for it.
And this is a scene that has always been a favorite of mine. I've always really liked. I have a picture in my office of, because I told my boss at the time about this scene once. I don't remember what the context was, but I've always liked where it's like, "Oh, hey Spock, sit down." Yeah, blah blah blah. Go ahead and sit down, Spock. Blah 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 blah. And then Kirk finally goes, "Would you please sit down?"
Yes.
And Spock very reluctantly sits.
Yeah.
And so I have a picture in my office of Kirk saying, and it's like a meme, but it's like, "Would you please sit down?" And that's where people sit in my office, which I love, that my boss at the time made for me. His name is Grant, but a little shout out to somebody I'll probably never talk to again in my life because he lives in Spokane or somewhere now. But I've always loved that scene. So you had told me about this. You're like, they replaced Kirk's quarters or wherever they are.
They're on some, like, I think it's like that what would be Picard's ready room.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the conference room or ready room or if
Yeah.
it's the quarters, but they've replaced it from the wall is now a star field, right?
Yeah.
It's like a
It's a big
clear,
old floor to ceiling window.
which
Yeah.
is cool. If it would be cool if it didn't require them to, for some reason, totally fuck up the features of everybody standing against that.
See, I
So
did not notice that. So I guess, yeah.
oh my God, it's jarring, Butch. It's horrible. So, it's like they'll show a shot, like a closer shot that doesn't have the star field, and they're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, and then it'll be the shot of them up against the star field, and their faces look washed out or compressed.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like it looks really terrible. This will happen in one other scene where everything looks great except for Kirk's arm is all blurry.
Yeah, I know that exact scene. I know exactly the scene you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So that whole that whatever that is,
Yeah.
right, which I assume is you're trying to blend different things.
Yeah.
That blending in this scene, it makes it almost unwatchable. And this is one of my favorite scenes of the film that they're fucking up here, because every time they're against that space backdrop, the person's head is 80% of its original size, and the features are blurred like a paintbrush.
See, I didn't even notice that.
Oh my God, it's horrible, really bad. It leapt off the screen at me. I was like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah, because this is they spent great pains to improve this, and how nobody would notice that or couldn't fix that.
It's inconceivable to me that nobody noticed it. I can't believe they released it that way. I'm really upset. So that's my major beef of this cut. This is definitely the definitive cut. It looks 95% better than ever.
Yeah.
But man, this scene, they just dropped trow and took a dump on it. It's awful.
That's too bad, because
Watch that scene again.
The scene's important because this is the scene where Spock is explaining why he's there. I felt the consciousness. I put the colon over it, and then McCoy is saying, after Spock leaves, he's like, how do you know we can trust him? And he's like, I could never believe that Spock would put his own interest in front of the ship's. But they leave that doubt in there. And so that's interesting because, and by the way, it's also interesting, and I think good, in that Kirk does not immediately go, well, you're kicked to the curb as first officer, Decker, because I got my first officer back. He's like, you're on board as science officer. He does not make Spock first officer.
But he essentially does.
Well, yes and no, because Decker is still the one that's doing as your exec. This is my role, and I'm doing this, and and that kind of thing. But yeah, he's less necessary for Kirk to take his advice now.
Well, there's definitely like Spock standing right next to Kirk, and Decker's a little further away. Yeah. There's lots of hey Spock, hey Spock, hey Spock. Oh, by the way, Decker, what do you think? You can watch the bridge while the adults go do stuff.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so it is interesting that they at least give lip service to letting him stay in charge like that. So now,
but I just not to beat a dead
keep beating that horse, buddy.
Yeah, it is distracting in that scene with the what happens to the features of the characters that are standing against that backdrop. So I want you to, when you watch it next time and you're not doing work or you're not doing whatever, watch that, because it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, I'll check it out. By the way, I think you meant to say not to tell Shia a dead teller, right? But it's fine. Yeah, it's all good. So we haven't gotten to that episode yet either. So we'll get there. So yeah, so now they arrive at the cloud, and they're going to have to figure out how to not have to happen to them what happened to the Klingons, right? So of course their way of doing that is to just go ahead, please.
Thank you, Butch. I forgot something during the wormhole scene. I don't know if this has always been there. I'm sure it has. I've never noticed before, but this print is so beautiful, excluding the scene I just ranted about, that I never noticed before that Kirk's drumming his fingers while he's in the captain's chair.
Did not notice that.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
He's kind of got this nervous energy that shows to me, again, that excitement he has whenever he's in the chair. He's like, not like unbridled, but he's really torn between this is a horrible situation and there's been and I've had doubts about it, and everything hasn't gone as planned, and this is great. I'm in charge again. And so he's drumming his fingers like, all right, let's do this. It's really cool. I never noticed that before, and it sounds like you didn't notice it.
I did not notice. I'm too busy looking at everything else that's going on, the booming and the blipping, and so their big plan is to get there, and they're not going to make the mistakes that Epsilon 9 made and the Klingons made, except of course they make that exact same mistake. The big torpedo comes out of the cloud and totally smacks them, but as they do not say in this, but they said in the original version, Sulu says the new screen's held. Because, again, they're tucking you through everything. So the thing hits them, drains almost all their power, but they survive it. The Klingons didn't survive it. Epsilon 9 didn't survive it. But this is a refit Enterprise, baby.
Well, and also I like the fact that, it sort of shows that now Kirk is making a good call, because Decker was like, we should scan them, we should, right, all that stuff. And Kirk is correctly saying, no, we don't want to provoke them. So presumably if Decker was in command, you would have got the ship blown up in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's like the step one of that. And then step two is going to come in a little bit later about what the two might have done differently, right? So, so it's interesting. So now, having survived that, they reply to a hail that they were receiving at a ridiculous high speed that Spock figured out. So now there's no more torpedoes coming. It disappears right before it gets them, which is a cool effect.
That looked great, too,
which is a cool effect, because that's not the original. The original was like, it shows it on the screen and it just like, boop, disappears on the screen, on their view screen. But in this, they show an exterior shot of it disappearing right before it hits them.
It looks tremendous.
Yeah, it's tremendous. Really... And so then they decide to go into the cloud, and this is the big, long, expensive. We spent a lot of money on this set, and we're going to use it for a big chunk of time in this movie scene. Talk about it.
Can I just say, so, I think your big takeaways originally, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know what yours were. My big takeaways, the first dozen times I saw Star Trek the Motion Picture were the uniforms are drab.
Yeah.
And all the cloud stuff is 2001-ish awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This looks better than ever.
Yeah, it does.
God. This sequence alone, which is where they spent a shit ton of the budget, and a lot of people criticize it because it's like, okay, you're worried more about special effects than story. That I think there's, probably a point in there. I don't know if I entirely agree with it, but goddamn, it looks really good.
I mean, it's a 1979 movie, and it's 2022, and it looks great.
It looked good then, and it looks even better.
Yeah.
They killed it.
Yeah, they did. It's 2001-esque, but it blows that away, honestly. I mean, they're doing the same kind of thing, but they had it was 11 years newer, that movie was, than 2001 when they made it in '68. And they had way more money for it, and so they set out to do the same thing but better, and they did. I think
they visually did it better. I still say I would say 2001, the emotional impact of that still holds up.
It does, except that those characters we met an hour and a half before, these characters we've known for a decade, right?
No, I'm talking just about that sequence. I think, my takeaway from just spoilers to everybody, my takeaway from this movie tonight was, this is an epic that belongs to be held up in that rarefied air with 2001.
Yeah, and everybody says it tried and failed, but they're wrong. I think it gets there.
2001 is great, but half of it is a snooze fest.
Yep.
For all the greatness it has, I think this movie tonight that I watched is an epic, every bit as good as 2001. It will never probably be held in that high a regard.
Nope.
But I'll tell you, it moved up my list of Star Trek movies tonight.
That's great. It's been at number 2 on my list. So yeah. So it's not. I'm irrationally saying that, I know, but that's how I feel. So even though it's rational,
at 3, I think I would put it at number 3 on my list.
So you go 2, 4, 3 kind of thing. So
2 and 4.
Yeah, 2, 4, 3 then. Yeah. So all right. So now they make it through the cloud, which is really cool, and then they get. Now this is the cloud sequence. I think is sharp and stuff like that, but it's not. vastly different from the director's cut. It's just a better thing. But when you get to see the actual V'ger, or what is the object at the center of the cloud thing, that's much sharper and clear.
Are you talking about like when you're seeing? Are you talking about You're not talking about when Spock's going through it. You're talking about
yeah. When they reach the end of the cloud and now they see the thing, and then Kirk says, plot a course, fly us 500 meters over it, and then take us out to 100 kilometers, and stuff like that. So we've already had the cloud sequence, and now we're going to have another flyover. They have built this incredibly huge model, and they're flying this tiny camera over the top of it very low. It's really interesting, lit up, and then there's a couple shots where you get like the Enterprise, and it's like the size of a dime flying over your car or something.
I love that scale.
It's amazing, and it's so sharp and more three-dimensional than it's ever been before, and stuff like that in this version, and this because all the colors pop and the lines pop, and so. I remember watching the original version on my little screen, and when you see V'ger, it still just looks like clouds still. It's just like blue dots and some occasional yellow dots and some shading and stuff like that. Everything's sharper here. So the flyover is great and stuff like that. What do you think?
It's unbelievable. I'm a movie snob, as you know.
Somewhat, yes.
And so... if you're watching Bad Boys 3, let's say, or, Caddyshack, and you want to watch it on your phone or whatever,
knock
yourself out.
Yep.
But if you're going to watch Lawrence of Arabia, Vertigo, Unforgiven, Star Trek The Motion Picture, you need to be watching that shit on as big a screen as you can. And don't be doing... your taxes.
Don't be playing Candy Crush on your phone. Yes, pay attention.
Phone. Don't have people talking. These are cinematic experiences that you need to be invested in, and it will repay you tenfold for sure.
Yeah.
Those shots of the tiny, and it felt like there was more of them. I remember
there was the one that's directly above, and then there's one that's kind of from the side, and then the one that I thought was actually sort of plussed up on this version before, even the director's cut, is when they reach the end of it and they turn around to face the front of it. That turn, I don't remember ever seeing that turn before.
Yeah, neither.
They show it coming out, and then they show the bridge. In this case, they show the turn, and now we're facing it head on, kind of a thing. Like,
awesome.
Interposing our way between it, although they're both still moving at great speed towards Earth.
So you and I watched this tonight, of course. Yep. You watched it today.
Yeah.
It's coming to theaters in May. Are you going to go?
I'll put it this way. My wife and I, a couple months ago, made plans to definitely go see Wrath of Khan when it comes to the theater in September. I didn't know until I was looking right before you got on this call that this is coming to theaters in May. It seems like there's no reason not to, right? It's like
a no-brainer to me.
Yeah,
I don't care.
There's a Regal Cinema 8 miles that way. Why am I not going to it, right? So it's not going to be tough to get tickets. I wouldn't think. It was never tough to get tickets. It's not going to be a sold out show. I'll put it that way. So
yeah, you know what I'm worried about? My wife hates Star Trek.
Yeah,
I did not know this. Everybody listening, before we were well into years of dating, so
yeah,
I wasn't able to do the right thing and break it off early. Which,
my wife and I were watching Star Trek pretty early in our relationship. So, because she was already watching it at that time of day. That's what she did that time of day. So, I'm
hoping that if Mrs. Madness doesn't want to go with me, and she won't, that my son Brett will attend.
There you go. Exactly.
Attend me.
You don't have to do the finger thing. It's fine. Yeah, let's be clear. We're talking about the Vulcan finger thing. Yes. Okay. And yeah. So anyway, okay. So now they arrive and now they go in and so that whole special effects sequence is definitely better than it's ever been before, but it was really good in the director's version of it. It's just never been this sharp. It's really when you can really see it is when you get into the interiors. That's when you can really see the difference in this version.
But I don't know if you noticed this, but and I don't know if this is new to this edition or not. But when we're going through the cloud initially, the music was almost identical to this part of the score of Vertigo.
Oh, I did not notice, huh?
The do 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 do
Yeah,
do
yeah,
do
yeah. That the
do.
music is the same as it's always been, right there.
Okay, so well, I don't think that is that true. The music wasn't changed at all because I never noticed some of the
It's the
TOS
same
cues.
as it was in the director's cut, at least.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's definitely sharper and better now. So you might have heard it differently. I mean, because
Yeah.
what I noticed when they were getting the ship ready to go out is that you'd hear voices in the background that I don't remember ever hearing before.
I know
There's
a lot
one
of that.
point when they're in engineering and you're hearing this female voice, and then you look on the other side of the screen, it's like, damn, there's a woman over there behind a console, and she's the one talking, and you can see her moving her mouth to what you're hearing. And
Yeah,
I don't
and
remember ever seeing that before.
and I didn't remember the music cues from the Star Trek the original series either. The the original.
Yeah, there's very briefly a couple points in this there.
Yeah, was that in there? Was that in the original?
I think
version?
so. I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. So, so they are in a situation where they're now thinking, okay, what do we do next? And then there's an interesting shot. I remember when the original theatrical version of this that we went and saw in 2019, the theaters, that when the probe's coming on board, it came up in terms of they showed shots from the bridge, and it was like cuts like, 1, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden there's something on the bridge. In this case, instead, they show an exterior shot of one of those plasma balls approaching, and then it starts shooting lightning bolts, and we see the probe, the probe from the thing come in there, and it's very much. I never really appreciated it for what it is. It's very loud and bright and stuff like that, but it's kind of biblical in a way, right? The whole idea about when you see the God manifest himself in the Old Testament on earth, it's a burning bush, or it's a pillar of fire, or it's something, or a cloud over a mountain and stuff like that. And this is supposed to feel like something like that, like something that's a godlike power.
That's an interesting observation. I mean, I've always thought it shows, it's kind of rough.
Yeah.
It kind of crashes in.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, it looks like if you were to get in its way, you would get demolished.
Yeah. It absolutely will not interfere. That's right. So.
Right. It's not just light. It's not gently. There's no foreplay going on here.
It's purple.
It looks rough, and I think that observation about it being like Old Testament God stuff is appropriate, because I think you're onto something. Was that an original idea, or did you read that somewhere?
No, I mean, the idea is that they're supposed to be like frightened by it and stuff like that, and I never found it frightening when I was a kid. It's cool looking, but I never thought it was frightening as a kid, right? It's basically, I always thought, well, it's like a talking, walking lightning bolt or whatever is what it looks like, which was cool, but it wasn't particularly frightening. I was like enthralled by it, right? But you're supposed to put yourself in the shoes of these characters, and the characters are supposed to feel like.
I don't think you'd be enthralled. I think you'd be scared.
Help us. And of course, you have reason to be scared, or rather, shall I say, being scared is not unwarranted, is what I'll say. So, because Ilea gets vacuumed up by it. And again, we learn later what's going on with this, right? So what she just basically is disintegrated by it, like lightning bolted, and then she turns into an outline, and then she disappears. The sound goes away, the lights go away, and it's just her tricorder falling on the ground. I grew up thinking it was that thing on her belt that fell off.
I always liked how.
But she's holding a tricorder, is what it is.
It's such a dramatic scene, and all the noise, all the sound and fury, as it were, go away, and it just drops. I always thought that was a good job by Wise.
And Decker finally gets to see his girlfriend taken away from him permanently, and he's not happy about it. And lets Kirk hear about it, and now nobody's really happy about it. And this is the other thing. This is one of the most uncomfortable things I remember about the original version, is at some point that happens, and then they have like 30 seconds to think about it, and all of a sudden the computer starts yelling, "Negative control at helm," alert, negative, and so they have to call up somebody to sit in her station or whatever. It's like, yeah, they know, dude. Chill out. So they get rid of all that, which is just another good trim that they didn't need that there.
I agree with you. Why don't they have Chekhov do it? He's the former navigator.
Yeah, but he's now the weapons officer, right? So that's why he's there. And of course, they have separate weapons officers now from the navigator station or whatever.
But we also skipped over what I was asking you about when I was watching it tonight, which is why does Ilea come on board? And apparently, it's a surprise to her and Decker, right? Presumably, Decker would know who his crew is going to be.
Yeah,
and presumably, Ilea would know who her captain will be.
Yeah, and the thing is, it is because they both look surprised, or certainly Ilea does, and then she also looks surprised. Commander Decker, because I thought you were captain. Well, you didn't even know he was going to be on board. Why did you think he was captain?
Yeah, what do you think he was captain of, if not the Enterprise?
Yeah, so I don't know. They that's a little bit of a mistake on their part, but I think it's whatever, So
well, we're picking nits here, and also Spock comes on board and he's like, "Oh, hey Decker, I hope you don't mind if I'm science officer." How the fuck does he know that one, he's a commander, two, he's the science? I get maybe you could. He's been monitoring.
He's been monitoring, and we know that Kirk said make a note that this has happened and stuff like that. So presumably this is being communicated. I don't know. We'll just assume that he's communicating. He's been monitoring the communications and knows what's happening. I guess. So,
all right, I'll buy that. So, but the Ilea Decker one, I'm like, wait. What? Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter now because we're never going to see her again. So it's been nice knowing you, Ilea, and so you out.
Bye, Leah.
So they get by Leah. Leah. Yeah. So then they get tractor beamed into the ship. There's nothing they can do about it. It's got all these sphincter type doors on both ends and stuff like that, which is, I did hear somebody make the case that a lot of the imagery in this movie is sexual and stuff like that, and this all feels like we're penetrating the outer layer. It's like, yeah. But so I try to think about it, but and then.
What do you read? Gene Simmons Monthly? What are you
that's
doing?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's Christine 16 or something like that. I don't know. SI blank blank EEN 16. Yeah.
Oh, we've reached the probe. It's Hman.
Yeah,
Hman is the name of the probe.
No, that's what's broken by the probe. It doesn't matter. Okay, so now they're inside the ship, and this is where I think the vastness of it is. For a long time, watching this movie, it was never clear that they were inside because before the director's cut, the version you'd see had all the same stuff, but it was just more dark and jumbled and not as sharp. And then the director's cut came out and it was obvious that they were inside and that some of those blue cylinder looking things are structures in there. And now it's very clear, and there's like scale and like separation and definition and stuff like that. They are a tiny little ship in a vast, almost moon size vessel.
Yeah, I still think it's definitely way better. I still think they kind of jumped the shark a little when they said this thing's 2 AUs in diameter.
Oh yeah, the cloud's 2 AUs in diameter. Yes.
Yeah. They don't go through the cloud. I don't think nearly long enough for that to be. I realize I'm being a movie nerd dick here, but that is what Star Trek fans do when. Yeah. So
they'd have to be traveling at warp to go that fast through that cloud.
You could have said this thing is enormous, maybe. Don't say it's 2 AUs and then, you're going to go through it in 10 minutes.
And don't even get me started on 12th energy 12th power energy field. I mean, if I know anything about basic science, I know that I have no idea what a 12th power energy field is. Nobody does. But it freaks the shit out of Sulu when he hears it.
Right.
He's like, yeah.
All you know about that is that that's enormous.
Yeah.
Right? It's not specific.
Decker says thousands of starships couldn't generate that much power.
Right. So it's like, holy shit, this thing is really powerful. Yep. That's what they're saying.
That's all you need to know.
Totally cool how they do it. If you see something's 2 AUs, I know how big that is. Maybe not everybody in the theater does, but you and I do.
I'll put it into terms that you can understand, and I think that everybody listening can understand. This is it's the equivalent of 2,000 quatlus of power. This energy field is. That's how you know it's that much. 2,000 quatlus worth of power. So that's how you know.
And they made the whatever run in
Kessel
two
run
parts.
in 12 parsecs. Yeah.
Thing. Yeah, it's one of those deals. I wish they wouldn't have been that specific, because no matter how massive you show it to be, then it isn't that massive.
Yeah, I mean, so just the fact that at some point when they get close to Earth, the cloud is going to dissipate. And you're like, it's a cloud that's the size of Earth's orbit.
Of the sun, yeah.
Yeah, around the sun, right? So, I mean, it's 190 million miles wide is what it is, right? So an AU is 93 million miles. So it's 190 million miles wide almost.
So whatever they flew through wasn't that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and so if how would something that's that dense and that big dissipate? All that stuff would have to go somewhere, and where it would go is it would the whole solar system would be foggy, and it would take quite a while for it to dissipate. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we're getting lost in the details here because visually it's fun to look at and it's beautiful. So now they're in the ship, and we probably have lingered too long on all the particulars of this, but at some point, Leah shows back up as a probe, naked in the shower, and never before had I seen the water on her face, on her forehead, on her shoulder. It's very clear and stuff like that.
What is that? It's a sonic shower.
Well, it's very hot in there, is what it is, right? And so it's getting hot in here.
Haven't you always thought the sonic shower in Star Trek was cool, though? You can go in and be cleansed in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would have liked to see her take a sonic shower. It doesn't really matter though, because we don't get to see it. So she's a mechanism now. She's not a robot, she's not a cyborg, she's a mechanism. They say it like 25 times. She has a little orangish red glowing gem in her neck. So she sounds like this and I'm talking like this, and it's like, you should teach me when I'm talking to this.
I thought that was a really good device they did, Butch, because when they want to make her more human, all you have to do is dial back the artificial voice stuff.
Absolutely. And of course, they don't need to do that either, because her eyes are going to show it too. And
she's
so
awesome.
It's tremendous. So that shows up, and she's like, talking about carbon units. And McCoy explains, humans, Ensign Perez, us, or whatever. Yeah, we're the carbon units that are infesting Enterprise, which is a living machine. And we learned that she serves V'ger.
Don't you wish he would have said, humans, idiots in the third row? They mean us.
Idiots in the third row. Yeah. But it's nice that they actually throw a little notoriety to one of their bit players. Not only do you get a line, but you get a name of your character for the rest of your life. You'll be able to tell your great grandkids, "That's me. I'm Ensign Perez, right there."
That Comic-Con tale.
Yeah.
No, and I like the game rooms. When they're in the rec room and they show the previous versions of the Enterprise, it looked like they added something to the. Hey, Ilea used to like this game, and then they added some effect of it moving around.
I don't know if they did it was in the director's cut too, and I think when I watched it the last time, I was watching the theatrical version, and they moved around in there too. I'll tell you what, that first game that they show, which is just like the lights on the floor, if that isn't also a 1979 thing, it's like, very much that's what video games were back. Kids at home.
It looked like Simon.
Yeah.
Did you ever have one of those back
I
in the
did,
day?
yes, exactly. I had Simon, I had Concentration, I had Superfection, I had all that stuff, baby. So it's interesting because at some point they discover that she's a mechanism, and that it's there to learn from them, but they're going to learn from it, and they get this great idea that if Decker can reach her, that they might be able to manipulate her and or V'ger through it. So but Spock at some point essentially says that we're never going to learn what we need to learn from this thing, and so Spock takes it into his own hands to sneak away. The Star Trek the Motion Picture version of stealing a shuttlecraft, as it were.
Well, and I always used to feel like my initial reaction is like, that's out of character for Spock, but then I think, he really can't risk Kirk saying no if he
Yeah,
runs this idea by him.
yeah, yeah.
Is
And
that your
again,
take on it?
it's playing with the idea that maybe he does not have the ship's best interest at heart, right? It's you're. I don't think that that's true, but it's playing. But the viewer is left, and maybe
Yes.
Kirk's left with, well, maybe he doesn't have our best interest. Maybe he is in this for
Spock
himself.
going rogue?
Yeah, and so he goes in there, and then they have that big long. It's really interesting because it's long and in depth travel through with the jet booster and stuff
I
like
thought
that.
this looked better.
It's tremendously looking. Although he talks about, I'm looking at stars, whole galaxies. I was like, you're looking at like 6 planets in a diamond shaped pattern, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Also, I'm assuming if V'ger's 300 years old.
Yeah.
Presumably, there's been some time warp action going on too, because you're not traveling galaxies plural and the whole universe, as we'll come to
The universe is
speculate
big
later.
Yeah.
In 300 years. You just aren't.
No, yeah, but it did go back in time through a black hole, so maybe, or went through a black hole, so maybe back in time or whatever.
Kind of, that's my assumption, is that we're having some time shenanigans.
Yeah. So as this all fast forwards, Spock decides to take things into his own hands while Decker's trying to tinker with Ilea's brain patterns inside. He's out there. He gets an attempt to mind meld with V'ger, and it doesn't go well. Obviously, it's a brain power way beyond anything he's experienced. And so,
why would he think this would work? How does he think? Well, basically, he's V'ger. If I touch something, there's going to be some connection.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't mind meld with something that doesn't have them. Is he mind melding with bookcases, stereos?
Well, he's already felt this thing's intellect, right? So it's like some sort of a intellect that reaches out through the vastness of space.
Maybe I'm old school. I miss Spock mind melding with minds.
Yep. Yeah, where you have to use pressure points and all that stuff.
Yeah,
yes, and
that was the whole idea.
Yeah, cupping and acupuncture and acupressure.
Yeah, that's the acupressure.
I'm just gonna nuzzle my nose in your neck, in the hollow of your neck. It doesn't mean anything. It's mind meld. So yeah, there's all that, and so Kirk has to go out and rescue him, and they bring him back on board. And this, I know because I ranked him. This is my favorite scene in this movie, where Spock has now been rebuffed. Chapel's kind of doing brain scans. Yeah, he's got a little bit of swelling in the pons region of the brain or whatever. He was lucky to survive it. A lot of power in that mind meld. And then that's the scene. And this is the scene where I think this movie does not get enough credit for what just happened. Spock, for his whole life, has been torn. He's like, I really wish if I could just give up all these emotions and just give in, do what the Vulcans do, and just be logical forever. He has realized by mind melding with V'ger that V'ger is like the dead end that leads that road leads to.
Yeah.
Right. And he's laughing at himself for doing it. He's like, I went out there and I did this, and I realized, for all of his knowledge.
Was that laugh new? The laugh?
No, it's there. Yes, like, I should have known, kind of a thing. And then that whole scene where he's explaining to Kirk, it's like he kind of passes out a little bit, and then Kirk's like, knew what? And so Kirk's got a hold of his shoulder, and he reached up and he grabs the hand, and then they do this. It's like this simple feeling. It's a feeling, an emotion, is beyond V'ger's comprehension. And V'ger is empty because of it. It knows everything there is to know, and there's nothing else. There's no purpose, no hope, no anything. And it's like that is the moment right there. This encounter with V'ger is the moment that fixes Spock. Spock was a broken character. I mean, a compelling broken character, but he was broken because he could not achieve what he wanted, which is logic. He wanted to be able to set aside his human half and become a Vulcan, and he never could do it. And now he's learned that he never has to, and he never should have tried.
Well, like you said, he's learned that even if he were to reach his goal and become totally logical, that does not have the ending that he thought it had. That seemed for him, logic has always been his salvation. This is my path, and if I follow it to its conclusion, I'll get to be whatever, my best Spock. Yeah. And now he realizes that's actually not true.
Live your best life. Yeah.
right?
It's exactly.
So it's part of the equation, but it's not the whole equation. And we're going to see that echoed through all the rest of the movies,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Logic is the beginning, not the ending.
Yep. And he learned that in this encounter, and
I
now
couldn't agree with you more.
And now, for the rest of the movie, basically, so Ilea is like they reach the Earth. The Earth's defense systems all go down. V'ger plants these torpedoes all around the Earth as mines, basically, that he's going to use. It's going to use to eradicate all the carbon units on Earth.
Yeah.
In hopes that he can find that they will, whatever those infestation of the carbon units will do, will stop interfering with its attempt to reach the Creator, which they still don't know what the Creator is.
I think V'ger is certain that this is what the obstacle is people.
Yeah.
And this looks cool. So this looked different to me.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but V'ger, because there's no cloud now. V'ger looks like a dragon from a Chinese calendar.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's very scary coming into the Earth's orbit. We get these cool probes set out that, are the MacGuffin or whatever. What are they going to do? That doesn't matter. They're going to get rid of the Earth.
From these positions, it can devastate the entire surface of the planet.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is. I thought that looked badass. I don't remember if that's new or not, but it looked awesome.
Yep. Yeah, so it looks great, and that's the situation we set up, and then Kirk's like, well, so it's like, well, we want you to withdraw the probes, and if you do, we will help you get a hold of the Creator. He doesn't know who the Creator is at this point, because he doesn't know what V'ger is at this point, and he doesn't remember the Changeling episode. So although the V'ger says it's a perfect life form like him, so they assume it must be a machine. Now, why he would be looking for a machine on Earth that nobody knows about, Kirk can't figure out. But they eventually convince the Ilea probe that it's like, set us up a face to face with V'ger. So they do, and it takes them into the inner sanctum sanctorum. It creates a little walkway for them, which is a really cool effect.
It is. I just want to say, here is where, Kirk's like, clear the bridge, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's going to go stand in the corner for a minute because they never actually leave. They go stand in the elevator.
Yes, exactly.
But, Spock says, and we've seen this throughout the show, Spock says, V'ger is a child, treated accordingly.
Yeah.
What does that mean? And of course, now it's up to Kirk to interpret that and say just the right thing.
Yep.
I always wish there was one show where Kirk would be like, I'm going to say this, and then Spock would be like, no, that's not what I meant. He always gives these kind of cryptic nudges to Kirk, and then Kirk says exactly the right thing, which he does here.
Yeah.
But I would love for him to just totally misinterpret one of those vague instructions.
You said treat him like a child. What did you mean? Oh, I didn't mean that, Captain. Yeah, something like that. That would have been nice. But but again, they're simpatico and they're on the same wavelength and stuff like that. And they get their face to face with them. Creates an oxygen gravity envelope out there. They decide it's going to be Kirk, Spock, and McCoy going out there with the Ilea probe. And Decker's like, hey, I'd really like to come. And they're like, all right, Sulu, you're in charge. Decker's coming with us. He's got something to do out here. We just don't know it yet.
I always thought this was so cool how they're walking on the exterior of, we will see in Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
Or Star Trek 8, rather.
6. It's 6. Oh, it's 8. You're right.
Yeah. When they're walking around in gravity boots. But to see them just out walking on the outer hull of the Enterprise is super cool.
Yeah, I don't know that it's, I think I'm looking at that video even today, and I'm thinking, I don't think that's to scale. I think that they missed the scale of that. They should be smaller. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it. It doesn't matter. So so they walk out there and they follow the path down to the big kind of. If this is like, I can't believe nobody's made a video game where this is like a boss battle or whatever, because it's like the kind of thing you would run around and got to pick up the chain gun over here and got to pick up the grenade launcher over there or whatever. But V'ger is at the center of it, and V'ger is a gussied up version of 1980 space probe, right? Or I guess the Voyagers were launched in the 70s. They arrived in 86 at Uranus. Anyway, so
Well,
yeah,
there
and
never was a
89 at
Voyager.
Neptune, right? Exactly. So
There never was a Voyager 6. Am I right about
that's
that?
correct. There were two of them, right? So, but and that's what's beautiful about this is because as this movie's being made, they're flying to the Voyagers 1 and 2 are flying through the solar system to head to Saturn, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, right?
Yeah.
And so it's perfect because it's like, yeah, just a couple more of those. Of course, they get the dates wrong again because then Decker says Voyager 6 was launched more than 300 years ago. Well, Voyager 2 wasn't launched 300 years ago.
He could be wrong about that, though.
Yeah,
right?
that's the thing. Characters could be like, well, I'm just remembering it wrong. Just because he says it doesn't mean it's history. It just means he said it.
200 years before you were born. I mean, 300.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 200 was also three. If I was 300 years before, I'm also 200 years before. So more than 200 years before.
Good point.
But it doesn't matter because it's Decker. That's the key thing is that Decker could be wrong about the details, right? So then this is the other great like expositional conversation in this is that so V'ger is going to receive the signal. They figure out it's Voyager 6. They're going to send the signal. They can do it so that it can transmit its data, but then it sabotages itself to make the creator come there because it still doesn't think that these stupid carbon fleas are the creator, but they're about to prove it that it is. And so then they have the confab over in the corner again. It's like with the red, with all the background while dead-eyed Ilea is sitting there waiting. She's just so creepy looking when she wants to be and so alluring when she wants to be. It's amazing what they got out of Persis Kambata.
If I may, Butch, in those scenes when they were when she first arrives as a probe back on the ship, whenever Decker starts to get to her, she'll convey that, and then she'll totally shut it down.
Yeah. And you could just see it come across her face. It's amazing.
She did a great job.
Yeah. So this scene then with the four of them, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Decker, because he's part of the quadrumvirate now, whatever it is, I don't know. Yeah. And they're explaining, it's like V'ger has to evolve, and he's reached the capacity that a being of pure logic can reach, and it needs a human capacity, and so it wants to join with its creator. It said it wants to join with its creator, so apparently they're going to figure out a way to do that. If he just like keys in the sequence, then something mystical will happen to him. The Ilea robot will walk over. The porn music will start playing.
He's gonna bang Ilea,
and then all of this happens, and it's a very elevated sci-fi idea of the singularity. That's a concept from science fiction, science fact actually, that at some point humans and robots will merge. We'll upload our consciousness to the machines or whatever is what will happen because the computers will be big enough, fast enough, powerful enough to do that. And so then all of this happens, and then the last of the new shots is that there was always that scene right at the North Pole of Earth from space where you see kind of where all of the action is happening is bright light, but in this case it's actual like profile of the V'ger ship that's up there that explodes from the blue sky beam that they were presaging. They were doing sky beams before every movie in the 21st century started doing sky beams. It comes off of the V'ger, and then from the explosion of this, the Enterprise is set free.
Yeah. Presumably Kirk and everybody got back inside before this happened.
They were running, so that's good. Yes, exactly. And then we get the epilogue where it's like, I think we just saw the birth of a new life form. It's been a long time since I gave birth since I delivered a baby. List them as not as dead but missing kind of a thing. So it's all very mysterious. And then we get the little last line. It's like, okay, well, warp factor 1. Mr. Sully's like, where the fuck are we going, Captain? It's like,
I thought we just established you can't do that inside the solar system, but never mind.
Yeah, I know they had done it all the time inside solar systems. I mean, how do you think that they break away from when they had to travel back forward in time? In Tomorrow Is Yesterday, they were slingshotting around the sun at like high warp speed. So
I don't know why they did that.
It's Robert Wise. Whoever's writing the script doesn't know. That's why. I mean, but I'm going to overlook that.
Yeah.
So.
And I thought there was an extra couple lines, I think, at one point where, Kirk says, I think we got a reaction out of them or something. And Spock says, I think that's a logical assumption, Captain. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I think some of those lines I think have been in various versions and not in other versions is what it is.
Yeah.
If you'd see the TV version, sometimes some of those lines aren't in there. I think maybe that's what it is.
Well, it works anyway. For whatever reason, if it's added in, it works.
Yep. Well, all in all, let's give our final thoughts. Our breezy little discussion about the new stuff has turned into a 2-hour walk through the plot again. So here we are.
You thought it was gonna be a half hour? We love Star Trek.
I know. There's just no way to go around it. So I love this movie. I think it's a great movie. I think it grows on me as time goes on. I know it has some flaws, but I don't care. It has some things that I think a lot of casual Star Trek fans don't appreciate. The fundamental change in the character of Spock, the nature of what V'ger is, and V'ger's journey is the most sci-fi thing that's been put in any of the 13 Star Trek movies.
Yeah. I think Spock's journey and Kirk's journey are tremendous. I thought Shatner did an amazing job of acting in this movie. He did a lot of real subtle things that were great.
Yep.
I thought the visuals, with the glaring exception of one scene, were awesome.
I'll have to see that later.
The music in this movie has always been next level.
Yep.
So I would consider this to date the definitive version, but I definitely hope at some point they clean up that messy.
Yeah.
You'll have to let me know tomorrow or whenever what you think of that scene. But I thought it was god awful. Jumped off the screen at me bad, but everything else in this movie is really great. I enjoyed this probably the most tonight that I ever have.
That's great. Yeah, I thought...
including in the theater. So I thought it was great, and I'm going to say I have it at number 3 out of the however many 13 movies or whatever.
Yeah, like I said, I have it at 2 on my list. I go Wrath of Khan, Motion Picture, Search for Spock. That's where I go, so...
You go Search for Spock? Yeah,
because I think, like I said, I just cannot. Well, we'll do that movie someday, but I just cannot brush past the notion that that the Enterprise gets destroyed in that movie. I mean, that's a big. That's like a equivalent of Spock getting dusted in the movie before it moment for me. So yeah, but anyway, we'll get there someday. It's been great talking to you about this, Rob. Like I said, it was fun watching it today. It was fun looking forward to watching it. When knowing it was coming out and stuff like that, and I think it will be something that I will do my best to go see when it's in the theater. So,
likewise,
we strongly encourage all of you to do the same. So, thanks for joining us tonight, this morning. Sun should be coming up soon. Doesn't matter. And here on the Cinema Color Podcast, it's always nice to hang out with my buddy Rob and you, the listener. Singular.
A long podcast.
There you go.